public servant, but someone who has been part and parcel of the Reparation Initiative in this country since its beginning. I'm here to facilitate a panel discussion aimed at helping us to unpack the issues involved in the genocide in Brochure, concepts of reparation and all that it entails. The background to that is simply, what is the event all about that brought the people today in Windhoek? The event is basically about the inauguration of the first national genocide remembrance event in Namibia. Haven't we waited long to get that day recognized in Namibia? It's 121 years that we're talking about. So we have got a reason to regard this as one step forward, in that eventually this day has been gazetted, meaning it has been recognized and inscribed in Namibian law that genocide did take place in Namibia. No outgoing government, no incoming government in Namibia or anywhere else will ever have the power of basis not to recognize that that happened in Namibia. And of course, the context in which genocide happened was caused in the context of imperialism, which extended physically itself in Namibia through colonialism. And that colonialism meant one thing, that people have to come and take over what belonged to other people. In the German parlance, colonialism to them meant what they call Lebensraum, looking for living space. And that space was obtained at the expense of pushing others out. And that push out is what eventually culminated into people to have to be exterminated in order for what belonged to them to be taken away. So that is the historical context of how genocide happened in Namibia. But being Namibia, as we are here, there are already debates left and right. The launch and inauguration of the Genocide Day, which is tomorrow, when it will be launched officially by the head of state, is being confused with discussions going on between the Namibian government and German government that we know has been going on for the last 15 years or so. But the event which has brought us here is the recognition of a special day to remember and celebrate the recognition that genocide took place in Namibia. That is the day which will be inaugurated for the first time tomorrow. And we have invited a group of informed and experienced Namibians to come around to share with you today here their understanding of these three things, basically what Remembrance Day is, its significance, what genocide is, and whether it is possible to talk about genocide in isolation of considering things like reparation. These are the three concepts that the learned and experienced people we have invited will help to shed light on. So that said, I take the liberty to introduce the panel of the invited guests who will be sharing their knowledge and experience and wisdom with you. In typical Namibian tradition, as a pace setter, being the first country to have the top 3 positions in the country occupied by ladies, namely President, Vice President, and the Secretary General of the ruling party, being female, I will kick off by calling whom we call a protocol lost daughter. Ms. Celia Stefanos is one of our panelists. Thank God. Celia Stefanos is a descendant of the 1904-1908 genocide committed by Imperial German forces in Namibia. She is a child who experienced both apartheid and colonialism. Celia's real name is Celia Chipilile. But like all people, victims of genocide, she fled her ancestral area here and ended up in southern Namibia, in South Africa, in a place called Hela, is where the grandparents landed after fleeing away from the genocide here. And eventually they returned from South Africa back into Namibia, and she's from Falfas. She's a Chipilile. Our second panelist is Ambassador Pius Gunaisi. Pius Gunaisi is a Namibian thinker known for his existence career in journalism. He's one of the founding members of the Namibian newspaper as we know it today. He has an extensive career in our diplomatic services since independence. He served as Namibia's ambassador to India, and prior to his diplomatic service, he was a former member of the Directorate of Elections in Namibia. I worked with him on that one. And he has been an outspoken advocate for justice and inclusivity in Namibia. Of course, he's a regular writer, columnist, and he has criticized the Namibian government's handling of the talks going on for the last 10 years between the two governments, Namibian and German governments. I'm sure you'll be in a position to give some deep insights on the issue of genocide and the Portuguese as a very article. Welcome, please. Our next panelist, he is a board member of the Institute of Public IPPR Research, Public Policy Research, for the last 10 years. And he's a founding member of the Namibian Journal of Social Justice, and has been part of this editorial collective since its inception. Shirera holds a PhD degree in sociology from the University of Witwatersrand. Of course, he could not have become an ox without having been a calf. He has got his first two degrees, a BA and MA from the University of Namibia. He's a local boy in that sense. Very familiar with our situation and circumstances. Our next panelist is a quintessential descendant, Mr. Mike Mpoto, an Indian of Ehira Kambwe, known under the so-called government as He hails from a peasant community. He is a Mukwewa or Hawari from the side of his maternal family, and a Mukwendada from the side of his paternal family. According to him, the Yanga played a very important role in his cultural upbringing. He was a member of parliament for the Rally for Democracy Party and its leader for some time. And in that capacity, he served as the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee. He is very sensitive to accountability And I'm sure he will throw some light on the issue of accountability as it pertains to the genocide and restoration issue. Are we accountable for what we are doing about this issue? Our last panelist, I'm sorry for that, but the sister would have to come and then experiment on the exercise of self-introduction. She is a student at the University of Namibia. Unfortunately, I haven't got her CV because she replaced another colleague who couldn't come to a certain weeks. So, and for that matter, she would have to do a self-introduction. Is confident enough? Please do that.
I am Pega, a teacher, a student teacher at the University of Columbia.
Now, I have a few ways. Immediately, it's a headline, apartheid, genocide, and reparations. How am I to deal with the present and the future? As Prof. do decided. On the same page, it's a newspaper of about 2 weeks ago. 28 May is important for the genocide timeline. It's an article again in the paper. Mr. Usman Bero is the author there. This is today's Namibian newspaper. There's a page there. Skewed documentation of genocides. The Holocaust versus the Belgian atrocities in the Congo. It's an article I wrote down in Manhattan, in Namibia, right? On the next page, 2 articles, headlines. Transgenerational trauma among descendants of the 1904-1908 genocide, written by Lino Angula in Namibia. On the same page, another article, today's paper, Genocide, Remembrance Day, a path towards reconciliation, written by Colin Kurani. So how topical is the issue of genocide? Today's front page new era, historic genocide Remembrance Day, tomorrow, with the scars you brought back from Germany. So that is only to underline the topicality of the issue for which we have invited these informed people to share their views, their perspectives, and their insights with you people. With that, I will put a simple standard question to all of them. Dear guest panelists, I want you to respectively share your view about the significance of the Genocide Remembrance Day in Namibia. What is its importance? What is your understanding of it? Sister C. So in the habit of putting latest order, I invite you to answer first.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Celia Stephens. For the purposes, can you hear me? Yes. So, for the purposes of the discussion, and just to tell you where I'm coming from, it's an echo, is that I'm coming from Pautras in southern Namibia. And I'm one of the descendants from the Chikirire family, but today we are called Stephans. So coming back to the question that was posed, why are the reparations for genocide important today? For me, how I see it is that paying reparations for genocide is not just about money. It's about taking responsibility for deep, lasting harm which was caused on us, the Namas and the Hereros. It's also a way to recognize the human rights violations that occurred and also to begin building on the damage done to the victims, their families, the entire communities. And reparation for me is a powerful tool for justice, for healing, for prevention, and for restoration. And that is how it is important for me to have this day commemorated in Namibia. Thank you.
I have to brief this as chiefs on my own. Those are the people that have been fighting on the forefront. We were watching them from our cozy places as diplomats and so on. But they were on the forefront and I'm very happy to be with them. Some of them I know personally, if not most of them. And funny enough, not funny enough, but fortunately, I'm actually related to many of them. Some of them are my cousins directly. When I was invited, I thought of one is to give a very clear, what are the symbiosis? This is a big word, but actually it just means that what are the discussions, the things that move up and down, between remembrance, to remember this wonderful day, and the idea of reparations. First thing for me was a great, very great breakthrough in the history of the people. After 35 years of fighting, and not only 35 years of fighting, but 170 years of keeping the flame alive. We have eventually arrived at a place where the struggle for our people are recognized at government level. It's considered, it's a statutory book. It means we can utilize that kind of thing to take government or anybody to court, because now it's a matter of law. I think it's a great, great breakthrough. And we, as the descendants, the direct descendants, must celebrate. It's a great day. So what are the significance? For me, the significance is fourfold. The first one is a catalyst that we can get acknowledgement of what was done to our people and a genuine honor. Secondly, we will from now on have a completely different narrative, different discourse about reparations. It's no more just atrocities committed by journalists. It will be now a question of real genocide was committed. What the government has done, and thank God for those who have been assisting the government. Now it's a matter of no more just atrocities by Schutzgruppe more than 100 years ago. Now it's a matter, true matter of genocide. The third one is that from now on, we will be able to fight and counter the hope for what we call historical amnesia. You know what is amnesia? When you get old, you forget very easily. Then people call it amnesia. Now the government here, and many people here who are not direct descendants, they forget very easily. From now on the calendar, every year, we will have a day in which we will remind everybody this is a reality. not the least one. It's a question of that now we will raise and ask this all these symbolic things that we have been fed. JD, all of these kind of things that has no meaning, which is not genocide at all. Now we can question, will this remembrance lead us to, will these symbolic actions lead us to genuine reconciliation and material justice? And I think that is the important thing. And I underscore the word material justice. Oh,
yeah, one thing one here, you go on. I mean, I got the wrong one. I go on. Okay, now that is untranslatable. So I will leave it at that. Let me then respond directly to the question that was put to us, the significance of Genocide Remembrance Day. I think I would raise a provocation, if you like. For far too long, we have been told that the history of this country, or the history of the fight against colonialism, started in 1966. To be exact, 26 August 1966. So I think the importance goes to the fact that today we are moving away from a distorted history, if you like. It's a recognition that indeed there are people who perished and who started the whole struggle against colonialism. So at that very basic level, we are fixing our history as it were. My second provocation is we have been fighting for reparations for quite some time now. But reparation is over a day that we have not internally recognized. So how do you fight for something that you, locally, in this country called Namibia, you have not recognized that it is genocide, officially? And I think the gazetting of the Genocide Remembrance Day goes a long way in saying, indeed, when we are engaging with the Germans, we are talking about something that we personally have recognized as a genocide that has happened. And thirdly, and this is where I will stop, I think it's the issue of historical amnesia that my senior Juniaski alluded to. And this is not just historical amnesia, it's deliberate historical amnesia. And we continue to see some of this amnesia in our public spaces. If you go to the Independence Memorial Museum, it pains me that the first thing that I see in front of that museum is a monumental statue of Samuel. What is Samuel doing there? So, as I approach that space, the fact that you hit me in the face should be something that makes reference to the atrocities that were committed, the first genocide of the 20th century. I rest.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. My name is Mike, and I want to put emphasis on my second name, Ratoveni. Ratoveni, Ehi, Ratoveni. That name is quite significant. I must start by saying that I was there when Honorable Usu Bayema Andewa Mukwenda Tawea Nandu introduced a motion in Parliament about tomorrow. I was there when he eloquently articulated the significance of a Remembrance Day, a Genocide Remembrance Day in Namibia. I thought I would never see an acknowledgement. I thought I would never come to see this day, which is the 28th of May, to come to reality. Because I was basing my argument on the process the government has taken in trying to push the whole genocide issue under the floor, under the table. And that was the basis of my argument that you will never see a Genocide Remembrance Day. It will be an effort, a good effort by Mandela, but it will never come to fruition. That will be mistaken. And here we are today on the eve of remembering or celebrating the Genocide Remembrance Day. It is indeed a significant development in the sense that there is no way moving forward where anybody, whether it is locally or globally, can deny the fact that the Hereros and the Namas, Banderos, were claimed to be exterminated. There's no way anybody can disagree with the fact that what happened in 1904 to 1908 or 1909 was in effect atrocities. It was genocidal. It was meant to eliminate an entire community or communities. To me, it is significant because it is now up to us to take that day and to make it a significant day in our lives. There is one thing that we must remember. The examination order and the history, as my young professor just said, need to be rewritten. And we have to play a significant role in rewriting that history for our generation to really understand what happened and what transpired. In the absence of that, we'll keep on blaming other people, we'll keep on making useless excuses while we have been given a platform for our children to really embrace our history. We know that the Namibian government at the beginning were much reluctant to acknowledge, there might be reasons why that happened, but they were very much reluctant to acknowledge that what happened to the Bairero and Nama communities of Namibia were actually genocide. But now, we can take this day to higher levels. What I mean is that since it's a day that has been accepted in Namibia, I saw an article recently from South Africa that are also celebrating this day and also acknowledging the fact that the Wairero and Nama people of Namibia was meant to be exterminated. So it is significant because there's a lot of things that my chiefs can actually do to elevate the importance of this day. I know that some of our community members are trying to discredit this day. They are trying to put their hand in the sand, claiming that they were not aware of the fact that such a motion was tabled in Parliament. But I know for a fact that the committee that was responsible for taking this motion to the people, they did engage, they did consult quite widely with our leaders, with various communities, with the affected communities. But nobody can come here now and start claiming that I was not awake when this issue was discussed in Parliament. This is the time for us to embrace this day and to make sure that we make the best out of it. Because even the international community now would know that there was a time in Namibia where genocide took place, and the whole world is now in a situation to celebrate with us and to also mourn with us the event that took place between 1904 to 1909. So this is a very significant day, and I think all of us should embrace it. Any effort to try to derail this day, any effort to try to come up with another day, because this was also meant to be a reconciliatory day where, you know, there were two communities that were meant to be exterminated on different dates. This is a reconciliation way of trying to pull in both communities in to agree on a specific day. Because if it was an issue of going to the day that was where the extermination order of the Herreros was declared, the Namas would have had an issue. The reverse would have been true also to the Herreros and the Banderos. So Mahandewa did a marvelous job in the whole process of reconciliation as well. Thank you very much.
So firstly, I'd like to thank everybody that has been taking part in the journey. I'd like to thank everybody that has been taking part in the journey to make sure that the Genocide Day is remembered. What is remembrance? It's to remember that injustice was made, lives were lost, they were stripped of their dignity. Our ancestors were stripped of their dignity. They were used as slaves. They were used as test objects, rather scientific objects. So I would like to read a short passage that I have written on the significance of remembrance. Often, history is presented as a series of distant events, nearly packaged into textbooks and museums. But as I learn more about the Wairero Nama genocide, I realize that history is not just about something we study, it's something that lives within us, shaping our struggles, our resilience, and our fight. More than a century, German colonial forces attempted to erase our community. My descendants were the victims, and we still carry the weight of their disposition, economic hardship, and historical injustice. For my affected communities, remembrance is a lifeline, a way to reclaim our narratives, and to prevent the erasure of our ancestors' suffering. The official recognition of Genocide Remembrance Day, May 28, in Namibia is a significant step towards ensuring that the victims are honored. It is a solemn acknowledgement of brutality they endured, but it is also an act of defiance against historical negligence. By remembering, we refuse to let the injustice fade, forgotten pages occasionally. We keep their voices alive and their stories present in the struggle. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. I'm Cheswalo Mandiro, Magilo, Mapudro, Matu Toroka Moshiro, Pamudi, Shamu, Ongiro Command. Imbabeno, Kuba, the second question, or issue that we want the panel to shed light on. In your experiences, is it possible for reparations to be dealt with only between the victims and the perpetrators? Do you envisage a possibility of reparations that can be obtained by the victims talking directly with the perpetrators? In your experiences, as diplomats, people who are widely exposed around the world. Or is Namibia the first experiment? Okushamanjiro yao tena opona hapo oshifuta kushimunyikwa bamahungiriro kokatiko muti nomubepe ulira beike shashifa mouye shishifa lekuli daiku tuna namu nongo muogo eto yale isasi no.
So the reparations would offer formal acknowledgement of the past atrocities. They can include the financial compensation. They can restore or bring back the stolen land or properties. They can provide access to healthcare and mental health support. And this can help address the real ongoing effects of the genocide on individuals and communities, and where direct victims of genocide are to be prioritized. They have to be part and parcel of conversations that are going on about the genocide. They have to be at the table where these conversations are happening. For example, when we talk about the existing land resettlement policy of the government of the Republic of Namibia, which was preceded by, I think, 2 land conferences here in the country, the criteria used should explicitly reference the descendants of the genocide. On a personal level, I wish to extend a final plea that my father, late Chief Joel Stephanus III, left with me personally before he passed in 2021, asking me to work with the Namibian government to facilitate the return of the graves from South Africa, Piala, of late sons of King Chikwirire, today referred to as Stephanus. Thus, for me, closure would only mean officially returning those graves from South Africa. Also, as a direct descendant, I feel that so much was lost. Land was lost. The habitat where we learn the norms, the values of Nama and Herero, that was lost. The wealth, the cows, they were lost. The surnames were lost. So much was lost. Can reparation really bring back generations to come all these losses? So for me, it's very important that we start today and make this a living reality in restoring the losses that our communities have suffered. Thank you.
I think the question is very pertinent because it is true in diplomatic parlance, in international law, in domestic. Government does speak on behalf of the people. That's law. So if there's an issue to be discussed, the idea of government come into play is important. But, yeah, I just was afraid it was so loud, you know. But my brother wants me to speak loud, and so don't sleep, Chief Kambademi. We will not keep you too long. The UN Declaration for Indigenous Peoples clearly states that every nation, and now we're talking about Herodos and Namas as nations, every nation has the right of self-representation. That's clear. International law is something that evolves, it moves. It's like law in any country. It moves on through customary law and things like that, and common law. So when they tell us that we are not supposed to be at the table, they exclude us, then they are doing the most egregious thing. Because nobody can speak on our behalf. We have pain of 117 years that we are carrying this pain. Nobody can speak on our behalf. It's not possible. And if they have this thing that the Germans are putting up an excuse, trying to avoid legal liability, they can only speak to government. Then they could have another format in which they have a subcommittee in which the descendants are speaking directly to the perpetrators. And whatever, and the agreement goes, and whatever they agree on there will then be made a bilateral agreement between the two governments. If the issue of that it should be government to government is in our way, it's a hurdle. So there is completely no excuse whatsoever to exclude the real victims and the descendants of those victims. We are tired as Namibians of exclusion. I mean, this whole 35 years was all about exclusion. We've been excluded from our own from decision making in this country. Other people take decisions on our behalf. That's done. When we look at even the day of tomorrow, you look at the program, you are shocked Again, that motive is still there. Even on your day, you will be excluded. We will speak on your behalf. You are not worthy. I mean, where on earth can you have a Remembrance Day? And the victims of those who suffered most graciously lost everything. Their women were raped. They were subjected to labor, slave labor for so many decades, if not maybe a century, to tell us that we are not supposed to be at the table. From now on, we can take government to court and get a court order that we are in the talks and we are at the table. Because now, Remembrance Day is an acknowledgement that genocide took place. And we have the right to be at the center of everything. And I agree with those who have coined that phrase, nothing about us is not with us. I'm missing it. Somehow it's not the right. What is the right quote? Nothing about us without us. So chiefs, get yourselves ready. Go to your study rooms and study. From now on, when these negotiations resume, you will be part of it. And we can do it by law as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm only with a guy walker. But I want metrophone the Umar. Again, that cannot be translated. To react to the question that was put to us again, my answer to you, Mr. Kavadi, is that it is possible for affected communities or victim communities and the perpetrators to have a conversation. It is a matter of international law, as my senior Dunyaski mentioned. In fact, not long ago, I think it was the UN Commission on Indigenous and People's Rights that castigated the Namibian government for not allowing or not giving enough space for the affected communities at the table. And the second one, I think we should all recall the motion by the late Chief Kwaimariwako of 2006, which was unanimously adopted by the Parliament. So there was no paragraph that was accepted with reservations. The motion was accepted in its entirety, unreservedly and unanimously. And that motion, if I may refresh your memories, stated that the Namibian government will be an interested party in the negotiations that were going to take place. As we speak, what we have is something totally different, or what we have been having is something totally different. So,
I think when the moderator, Mr. Kavari, asked that question, I quickly jumped in my hypothetical mode. Hypothetically, yes. It can be done that the perpetrator and the victim could come and agree on reparations and what have you. But realistically, no. There's no way a perpetrator can simply just come and resolve such a issue of that magnitude just out of their own will. I think it was demonstrated, as my learned colleague just said, during the motion that was tabled by the late Riwako in 2006, I think he acknowledged the fact that Germany cannot come to the table out of their own free will and just ensure that justice prevails. He knew that. That is why he brought the motion to Parliament, because it's almost like in any process of where two parties fought. When you fight, you create an animosity between the two of you. And there must be a mediator, somebody to mediate between the two warring parties, so to speak. Now, if you go straight into the motion that was tabled by Honorable Riwako, and the resolutions that were taken by Parliament, by our Parliament, they were very, very specific. They called upon a number of issues. I think there were 4 resolutions taken. One is for Germany to acknowledge that what they have done, those atrocities, is tantamount to genocide. 2, they must come and tender an apology. 3, we must initiate a process of negotiation between the affected communities and the perpetrator. And 4, acknowledging the fact that we are an independent country, the government of the Republic of Namibia must also be a party, an interested party in the process of negotiation. In other words, we as affected community must occupy the front table, and then at our back, our government must be there to give us moral support and whatever support we need in the process of negotiation. That is an acknowledgement of the fact that we're not at a stage where the issue of genocide can be resolved between the perpetrator and the victim. We were not at that stage at all. That is why that motion was tabled in that way, and that is why that motion, the resolution, called for those 4 activities to take place. So, unfortunately, things can go wrong. And I remember, I saw Honorable Mandela coming in here. I actually wanted to stand to greet him, but I didn't. But anyway, there is a feeling that the way the motion and the resolutions were taken, the subsequent development was such that instead of the affected community occupying the front table, the affected community is now pushed back at the back, and the front table is now occupied by our government versus the perpetrator. Where do they have the moral stand? Where do they have the emotional intelligence to articulate and to express themselves and to also have certain issues that are non-negotiable? There are certain issues that should have been non-negotiable when it comes to this whole process of negotiation. Unfortunately, if you ask me independently whether the negotiations was about genocide, my answer would be a complete no. It was about a bilateral agreement between 2 governments. It was about 2 resolutions that were taken by the Bundestag. One that was taken in 1989, that was before independence, and another one that was taken in 2004, that basically emphasized the importance of the German government to support the Namibian government because of the historical ties. So that is my answer to that. Thank you.
So my thought on this question is, how would we know that we are at ease after the negotiation? It's the question, like, we can, yes, come to an agreement, but how would we be at ease? If it's remembrance, we were all not there. We all do not know what they would have liked. As we don't know what our ancestors would have liked, what they would have preferred to, or how would have preferred to be repaired or repaid, rather. So the issue of the negotiation, it has to have grounds, such as one thing could be land repositioning, because till date 70% of our land is owned by German officials. 70%. Where do we stand as the people of our country? What do we have as people of this country if our land is still owned by German officials? So we can't yet come to a negotiation if the simple things, the basics that we know, have not yet been resolved. Thank you.
It's our time.
I just want to follow up on that. What Honorable said. To think about it, if you want to make it legal for the chiefs, if you want to be legal for the chiefs, the president has the powers to appoint all these chiefs. And then there's no statutory, any hurdles at all. If you go by so those who are sitting in front, they are all appointees of the president. And they are legally there, and they can negotiate with the perpetrator.
We are running out of time. I would want to invite our panelists that in the context of what they discussed and said, what is their final word to the people with regards to the recognition of this day, everything they have? What is your final word to the victims who are still struggling about this issue of genocide and reparations? What's the way forward? 1 minute for each.
My sister wants me to speak first. I made a calculation. If you go by what the population of the Avahereros was, the size of the population, back then, when the genocide took place, if you use a mathematical formula, you arrive at the figure that the Avahereros alone would have been by now 2.5 million people, have they not been decimated during that period. So the loss was not just lives and livestock. It's not just our women that were raped. It's not just all of those kind of things, the dehumanization of the camps and all of that. The loss of culture, all of this. But the loss of our political muscle. How we were destroyed. And today we have to suffer as a so-called minority. But if it was not for that genocide, would have been the most powerful nation in this country.
Okay, final words. I just wish that the slogan of the Okango Chiefs Assembly could come to bear on this day. The slogan is there for all to read. Strength through unbreakable unity. What we are lacking in our community is unity. These values should be packed to the rafters. But of course that goes to the fact that there are some amongst us who think that the day that we'll commemorate tomorrow does not have meaning and all that kind of stuff. So there are times when we have to strike a balance. So we are talking about the Nama and the Herero people who were victims of genocidal war. And there are various important dates in that genocidal war. But we can't have all of them, unfortunately, can we? 2nd October 1904, the extermination order at Morindiba. 12th April 1905, the second extermination order against the Nama people. You have 11th August 1904, the Battle of Hamakari. These are all important dates. And this is my proposition. Those dates are important and I think they should not be condemned to oblivion. But what could happen is that they can just be observed. Not as public holidays, but just to be observed on our calendar. So, for argument's sake, on the 2nd of October each year, if there is any official event, perhaps people will say, let's observe a moment of silence. Because on this day, Lota Fontroda issued an extermination order against the Herero. And through that process, you still keep that day. You probably do the same for 12th April 1905. So I think what I would say to you Herero and Nama people, the fact that tomorrow will commemorate Genocide Remembrance Day is a very momentous event, and we should seize that opportunity to galvanize our unity such that we fight for reparations as one people. Thank you.
My contribution to my last remark would be as follows. Our communities, our respective communities must understand and acknowledge the fact that the 28th of the 28th of May has been officially declared as a Genocide Remembrance Day. You won't get any other day from here moving forward. 1. 2, now that the genocide is on the table. That because this Remembrance Day has forced the genocide to become a contemporary issue on the table. The negotiation, a serious negotiation that is in line with the 2006 resolution taken by our parliament, must start, because it has not started. 3, the affected community. I'm sorry to say this to my chief, my apology. You must wake up and take center stage. My honorable chiefs must wake up and take center stage when it comes to this whole issue of remembering the genocide and also negotiating and restore justice to our communities. And lastly, there is a need for us to unite around not only the Remembrance Day, but also the whole process of the genocide negotiation. That to me is very critical. Thank you very much.
So one thing that I've realized is that the issue of genocide is not well written about in our history books. So as a teacher or as a student teacher, I would like to give out an initiative to educate the youth more about genocide, because our fellow peers do not know what exactly happened in 1904 and 1908. So the initiative, the best way to do this is to educate them, because they are the future. They will shape, they will be our shield. They will also help us build this and get this issue solved. Thank you.
Thank you, dear panelists. Our humble servants. Oh. Okay.
Just a last one from me is that it is also my hope that through our government and through the office of our president, we can also address some of the diverging views that are existing among the affected communities of the genocide, the Namas and the Hereros, about the Remembrance Day, about the approach that needs to be taken to the negotiations, and as well as some of the admittance to the atrocities that also featured in our conversation today. Finally, I believe that at the heart of these reparations, in an effort to restore our dignity, is to tell the survivors and their families that their lives matter, that they are human beings, that their pain has been real, and their justice is possible. I would also like to concur with my sister, the previous speaker, that the story of the genocide has to be told, and it has to be included in the books, school books, university books, and in the media, as it has been lacking for a long while, and we acknowledge that. Thank you.
Dear panelists, may I thank you on behalf of the Chiefs Assembly for having availed yourself to come and assist in trying to unpack some of the issues pertaining to genocide and reparations in Namibia. We will definitely come back to you whenever we have another platform of opportunity. Thank you.
Kerakaro Kiere, Sibandebu, Kimamungu, Meango Kuraita Gosha, Himamu Kuratine Ogonongo now. Unoroko Horumi Monjuo, Oruroko Horumi Monjuo, Eguma, Utengwa Sipote Guma, Utengwa Tunaisi Eguma, Himamu Ogonongo Hima.
Go straight to the prophetess. Bible makes divine histories. It says, for those who want to know their future should consult their past. Histories are officials of living of life. Kuimba kumari ango kushwa omiyalelewao. Gavea kebi yebu iwao. Dekatare kolumna yo lugar itu dipunyai. The very most crucial thing is awareness. We have reached all the target of success of the descendant of the nations that were victims of the affected community of this genocide. One thing is, if those who are in authorities are not writing the missions, that nations that have been affected should write their own history. If those in authorities are not writing the history of the atrocity that have done to our community, or the genocide that have done to our communities, let the nation upright themselves and write the history. That's also it.
Yes. Thank you very much for the question, Brooklyn. And I think it would be wrong for us. It would be wrong for us to have an expectation from young people, or to ask the question of, are there really initiatives that amplify the genocide cause? Because for the longest time, since Namibia gained independence, dating back to when the first motion of discussing genocide came into Parliament, we all know, and it's no secret that discussing the matter of genocide was somewhat of a taboo in Namibia. In present day, in Namibia, in an independent country, we have a lot of politicians who have become unemployed today because they spoke about genocide. They have become unfathomable in society because they spoke about genocide. So I think I understand the argument here, but my argument would rather than be directed towards government and saying that our government for far too long has censored the discussion of genocide. Therefore, a lot of students do not know about genocide. Those that know are deliberate about knowing, but there's no there's no institutionalization about genocide. Therefore, there's no textbook to tell young people about genocide. So there is really no initiative in present-day Namibia that will talk about genocide. It has to do with young people's zeal of wanting to learn about genocide.
About genocide and the initiatives that we have established is, first of all, one important thing in terms of establishing an initiative, we need to be aware. Awareness is very key, it's very important, and that's where we as young people need to act upon awareness that is available. Secondly, also, as much as we are aware, what are we as young people doing to capacitate ourselves with the knowledge that is needed in order for us to establish these initiatives? Secondly, what are our leaders, our traditional leaders, authorities doing to capacitate us and to ensure that we are aware of the initiatives that we need to put in place to act upon the reconciliation, act upon what we need to act upon as well. Because as much as it's government's responsibility to implement these things in our education system, it is also important for our leaders in our traditional authorities to capacitate us as well and inform us and educate us in order for us to come up with those particular initiatives in the long run. And also, one important thing is also as young people, let's say, in terms of what I'm aware of when it comes to what speaking young people, we see that we don't have interest in the matters of our traditions. We don't have interest in the matters that relate to us as young people. And in order for us to amplify those initiatives, in order for us to have those initiatives present, we need to have interest as well. Are our young people interested? Are the young people of the Nama and the Bahema speaking people interested in this particular matter, which is very important as well? So there I want to close.
Thank you very much for that. I would like to take from Manu to say that we don't need to really to put pressure on government, because for now we have seen what government is and what it's willing to do. So it is up to us to answer the question of what initiatives. There are no initiatives currently, but it is up to us to take to get ourselves involved in such issues concerning genocide, like we are doing right now. Because if someone is not doing what they are supposed to do, and you have been telling them to do it, I think you cannot go back again and tell them to do it. It's time to take things to your own and do what is needed to be done.
Zanzi, thank you for the opportunity. First, before I continue, I'd first like to say on the matter of the genocide that is always just referred to the Nama and the Herero. Well, there are other communities that were affected by the sites of the Namas and the Hereros, such as the Damara, the Ruko, the common in which I'm seated here representing today, were also directly, not by mistake, not by accident, but directly affected by the genocide. Because the Germans knew what they were doing, and they knew who they were dealing with when they came into this country. So we are not affected partly or how, but then we are directly affected the youth should be, for a long time we have a shadow band in Namibia as the youth. We are only permitted at certain times. So as the youth, we clearly really don't know what our history is coming to the genocide, because we only know it on a textbook context basis. So only what we are taught in school, which is not even the full history, is what we know as young people. And our elders don't even take up the initiative to teach us as young people the true history of the genocide. So my first initiative would be that as the elders and as the government, they should look back to the youth and take initiative to properly and fully teach and equip the youth about the genocide of the Nama Herero and the Nukon with the other affected communities by its side. AAOs.
The second question, going around the issue of preparation. This question I will direct to specifically. What collaborations lead to descendants of genocide? Financial compensation, land restitution, memorialization, institutional reform, or all the above? And are the current form or state or international acknowledgement sufficient in addressing the historical injustices faced by the affected community?
So the very first thing we should do as descendants of the genocide is to redefine what justice is. Because justice is a very important word when it comes to reconciliation. Justice is very important when it comes to reparations, redistribution of land, or possession of land. And when we speak about justice in the context of genocide, we speak about ensuring that in terms of reconciliation, in terms of reparations, this is done in a just manner. Right? In terms of land repossession, what particular policies has government put in place to ensure that land is equally redistributed or returned to the rightful owners? We see that majority of waterland in the general context is Kaolbeka. Majority of that space is owned by white men. And we are the descendants of that particular area. Now, what particular policies are in place from government side to ensure that we repossess the land? We repossess Kaolbeka. It becomes our and not owned by white men specifically. That is what restoration means. Repossession of land means. And then when we get to the monetary compensation of genocide reparations whatsoever, we see that nothing can amount to what happened to our ancestors. Nothing, whether it's billions of dollars, can amount to the lives that have been lost. Nothing can amount to the generations that have been lost, right? Whether in monetary terms, whether in development agendas whatsoever. And also, when we speak about the monetary aspect of it, we speak about who is deserving of this development, right? Who is receiving this monetary reparations? Is it the entire Namibia or is it the affected communities? Because when it is the entire Namibia, then it's not just. Because it's not the affected individuals. When we speak about building roads, where are we building these particular roads? When we speak about building universities, who are the benefits of this particular university, right? When we speak about repossession of land, who's getting back this land? How do we know who the previous owner of this land is? In terms of policy also, what policies involve this?
I just want to get one thing on the policy. If you look at the recent policy, the land conference was held in Namibia. There is no outcome. What was discussed during the land conference? There is no resolutions. What comes after that? If you look at the resettlement policy, it has nothing to do with the ancestral rights. If you look to the really barriers and really say that it has nothing to do with the affected community. So the main effect is, in business terms, land is an asset. It does not depreciate. It is not like a car that depreciates its value. So when you are talking about this, when the government aligned us as a region of the affected community in regard to ancestral rights.
And the next question following that question, if reparations are to come, should reparations be handled to national policy, international litigation, or both? What are the limitations of each approach around?
I think, Brooklyn, before I answer the question, let me quickly touch on the question of reparations. And I think for the better part, there's somewhat of a notion that the affected communities are only excited about the reparations that are to come. But that is not, you need to understand that there's something that we, and I think we share the very same culture with your white speaking people. We say in our culture that you don't talk about inheritance while someone is still in the mortuary. Our remains are still in the basement of the National Museum here in Koosking. Those remains have not yet been laid to rest. Those are our ancestors. If we are to allow them to display those skulls there in the museum, why better are we that the Germans did also did that with our skulls? So I think there's a huge prerequisite before we can talk about reparations of healing the wounds of the past. Our people are angry. I am frustrated. I am angry at the Namibian government. I am angry at the German government for how they are treating the genocide issue in Namibia. So I think there's a prerequisite before that on healing the wounds of the past. But to address the matter of if reparations are to come, in whose hands are they supposed to come? I want to ask you the question of the veterans of the liberation struggle in Namibia. Is everyone a veteran of the liberation struggle? No. Does everyone get from the veterans' money? So why should the genocide money be subjected to all the countries? The genocide is subjected to the veteran community. We, present day in Namibia, are left the south has become a small spot about the land. Our people are suffering in the south. Our people are in the job. Now people are in the job. People are in the thank you very much.
With the question in mind, I would just like to add to say the question of genocide and reparations is not a question just to be left like that. It's a question of whether our history as the Nama and Herero people should be recognized by this country, whether our history matters in the eyes of the government of the Republic of Namibia. Because if the government of Namibia does not advocate for the reparations and rightfully include the descendants of the affected communities, how then is our history recognized is the question. How then is our dignity reserved in this country? Yes, thank you.
This one is the first question. What happens? The voices of descendants are important in the discussion of genocide. It's very important. But what happens when the voices of descendants are excluded or marginalized from the national dialogue of genocide?
It's actually a very great question. And with great respect and humbleness, I ask and plead that this one I will respond in my mother tongue.
Yes.
Correct genocide here. One, who is a China, in a Maria, such a one when no one so, is it that such a
just to add on the way the descendants are left out in the discussion, it's very toxic because it creates a sense of only the big people that are in charge. And I think that's one thing we need to do away with in America, because when we only put the big people in charge, or when we only put the elders in charge, then we don't speak of the majority. Because 70% of this country is youth, is young people. And when we talk about reparations, we talk about reconciliation, yes, the people that are affected the most, or the will be affected, are the future generations, who is us right now. And when we are left out, it's very problematic, because who are you consulting for and how do you know what our needs are? Because it's like saying, preparing a meal that you don't know whether I'll eat or not aware of whether I'll eat this meal or not. So leaving us out as young people, as descendants, is very dangerous in the long run, because who are you consulting for?
If there is something that really urgent that we need to engage with you, and you are not inviting me, what should I come to you for? What And I'm very happy, close to answer your question in English. The Assembly of Kanjura Chiefs, let's move a genocide conference to Canberra.
I'll just steal 2 seconds before I give over the mic for the next question. And I'd really like to once again humbly appeal to my chiefs that are present here. And I want to say with all humility that the reason why perhaps the Namibian government is using the argument of not including the affected communities is because Overhero communities fragmented, Nama communities fragmented. Everyone is running their own course. Everyone wants to be a master of their own destiny. And that is the reason why the Namibian government will come and abuse Orange Assembly, run to the other chief council, go and abuse them, Nama abuse them, cause fragmentation, because this mess doesn't matter to them. And they will cause it's all to our chiefs. It's all to our chiefs to decide what is more important. Whose name is more important than the community that you want to serve?
This is my last question. Very personal question. And I pick up from where Chipura said this about the future generations. If you had the opportunity, you as parents, to speak directly to your ancestors, those who endured genocide, displaced them, and silencing of their history, what would you tell them today, and what promises would you make to future generations?
One very important thing I will tell my ancestors is government wants to extend Shan Island for non-port activities. And Shan Island is a very historic place in the Nama and Bahero genocide. That is where our ancestors' heads were being scraped. That is where we were experimented by the Germans. The same government who cares about our reparations, the same government who is concerned about us as the Nama and the Bahero people, wants to extend the Namport Luderans Shan Island the port Luderans Shan Island for green hydrogen projects. They are telling us that yes, it's not happening for green hydrogen, but for what else is happening? what other major projects in the particular area. So it's utter disrespect, that's what I'm saying to my ancestors. It's disrespect for government to extend a port towards Shark Island, which is a memorable place to us as the Nama and the Barano people. The last thing I would say is that our ancestors need, or we as young people need to honor our ancestors. And that's a promise that I will make personally to my ancestors, that I am going to make sure that in terms of justice, in terms of ensuring that reparations are given to the rightful individuals. As young people, I think it's something that we should promise our ancestors, that we are going to honor their memory, and we need to honor their deaths in the long run.
between our governments through well-intentioned have been near exclusive of the very descendant of the ancestors who suffered the so-called atrocity. Some traditional Herero and Nama authorities were notably excluded, from the negotiation tables, leading to a feeling of marginalization and betrayal within communities. How can a wound be healed when the wounded were not invited to the healing session? How can history be corrected? How can history be corrected when it's filtered with politics and foreign interests? Therefore, we, the youth of Yuna Oshana Cultural Society, stand today and say, not in our names. We will not allow our history to be commodified. We will not allow our grief to be rewritten. We will not allow the legacy of our forefathers to be divided among us as it is today. Families are being torn apart. Families are being torn apart, not by the past, but by the failure to honor the past in truth and failure. Our elders have fought for our recognition. They have walked, marched, petitioned, cried out across continents. And now we take their torch. We, the youth, stand not as mere witnesses, but as warriors of their memories. Today, as we read the poem, Bones in the Sand, Spirit in the People, we do not just recite words, we invoke our past, we ignite our future. To the Namibian government, we are watching. To the German government, we are not fooled. And to my fellow descendants, let us not be divided. Let us rise in unity, because our ancestors have suffered united. And we will fight for justice united. We still remember, we rise from their will, and we will not rest until justice walks among us, not as visitors, but as residents among national soul. May their memories forever live within us. May their fight continue through us. May their memory not just rise in independence, but in dignity. Long live the spirit of the Herero and Nama people. Long live the truth. Long live justice. Long live the youth united. I thank you.
Gracias. Mdamu ni watu wadate waliishi ibabi ngada ya bahari yoba kama watu wadate kwa wao ibaba mambo teka opo ngada ya bahari yo buina kuma kuni numero waka oke waliishi wana ndio kitu dara semua yang mampu dia betul habis betul bado hebu wala wasu wadate Ushakari kaisa vile unasema ndio kuna mambo kukusha. Au jimano wale wale watu watatangaje. Au mtu ndio kukusha kitu wala wao. Au ita kutana wala wale. Kukusha kaisa vile ndio paka ndio kwa baadhi kwa ndoka ndio kiaja. Kuhusu vile kutana kwa mambo kushahidi. Kwa nini kushika Kenya wale sio kwa kutoka kwa Aligana kali kwa aligana kuna mchoro wa mambo katika hiyo ndio kwa kuvuta posting ndio kwa ndika mzee wa pale wetu oh
Baik, bantu untuk kau ya tano mafiko Koosking South Africa mabuka itabulubika mabuka de kwa wabe ngati jeje ya patronal bagu komputer yang na mishine era ndio peo ya Kenya ndio ni kau dia Koosking South Africa ade peo shi na shi shokere kusho kwa kombi kwa ngapi kusho kwa shi kombi kwa asi ngale te ngale ndio bae ngale atuma mungu kwa sababu beulurio kuchoka ngale todo na mishine takio kwa kwa
no,